What is going on, everyone? Badger here. Should have like and sub, and let's get into this. I got my funeral for a franchise. Now we're talking about a different franchise here. This is Beverly Hills Cop, and of course, on the 17th, we'll be talking about funeral for a franchise of Star Wars. But let's see, does Beverly Hills Cop need a funeral? I know some might think so after that third one. I was really happy to see Coming to America 2, and then I actually watched the movie, and I was not happy. So when I heard about Axel F, I was like, oh, they're just going to mess it up again like they did Coming to America. But let's see. I will wait for the drinker, and here is the drinker. So let's see what he says. Maybe it's worth a watch.
It's tough to think of a better example of 80s movie culture than the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, which basically distills down everything that made the era so vibrant and memorable into one series of films. Fast cars, LA sunsets, obligatory strip club visits that mean absolutely nothing to the story, but man, they're awesome. A wisecracking working class protagonist who drops more F-bombs than a Quentin Tarantino script, and the dependable buddy cop formula that every movie producer in Hollywood was cashing in on at the time. And it was all brought home by an electric performance from rising star Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, shut up. A lot of people who are stand-up comedians and they do acting, it's like, yeah, they're all right. Eddie is damn good at both. He's damn good at both. He really is a genuinely good actor, and, you know, comedic timing and all that, obviously, and stand-up. Man.
Who was able to use his comedy experience to full effect. The franchise eventually shuddered to a halt in the mid-90s with a disappointing third installment that seemed to spell the end of Axel Foley's adventures. For a long time, there was talk of doing a fourth movie, with all the main cast slated to return, but the project languished in development hell for decades, with directors and producers coming and going more frequently than a Kathleen Kennedy movie. And then
I can't wait for the Ray movie.
And like some kind of crazy miracle, it finally happened. Beverly Hills Cop Axel F is upon us. On Netflix, no less.
No way!
40 years after the first movie and 30 years since the last installment. You know what? I'm not...
Oh my God, and still with Paul Reiser as that background character.
I'm going to say anything about that for a few seconds. I'm just going to let that thought sink in for a bit. Anyway, moving on. So you're here to find out if Beverly Hills Cop 4 is any good. Does Eddie Murphy still have it? Are his co-stars still alive? Does anyone even care about this franchise at this point? Well, let's get right into it, shall we? The movie picks up with Axel still working as a police detective in Detroit, where he's become kind of a living legend in his own department. But when he gets word from his old partner Billy out in LA that his estranged daughter Jane is in danger,
it's always a daughter. They don't have sons anymore. A strange daughter. Okay.
After poking her nose into the murder of an undercover cop, Axel's forced to fly out there to set things right. No sooner does he get there than Billy promptly disappears, forcing Axel to team up with Jane and her police detective ex-boyfriend to figure out what happened to him. And pretty soon,
a white man? Oh, I'm sure there'll be jokes made about that.
They begin to uncover a web of conspiracies, shady deals, and police corruption, all capped off with chases, betrayals, and a big climactic gunfight. You know, pretty standard stuff for a Beverly Hills Cop movie. But how high does the corruption go? Who can they really trust? And will they be able to get to Billy in time to save him? You don't need me to tell you that resurrecting classic 80s franchising,
say Billy put on a little bit of weight in the intervening years.
In the modern era is a pretty dangerous business at the best of times, because let's be honest, the sensibilities and culture that defined the 80s is like a salad bar to a fat positivity activist these days. But what's surprising about Axel F is how little it tries to pander to modern audiences.
Which is what I would expect, which is why I was hesitant.
In fact, the opening scene gleefully mocks the overly sensitive, easily offended culture of people today, and I think you can see that as a statement of intent for the rest of the film. Like, this is what people expect from movies today, but that's dumb and lame, and we're not doing that, thank you very much. God damn, I miss Jerry Bruckheimer movies. It's funny and irreverent and doesn't take itself too seriously, which is exactly what you want from a Beverly Hills Cop movie. And Eddie Murphy is definitely having fun playing his most iconic role again. He's older now, and while he doesn't have the same energy and fire that he did all those years ago, he's still got more than enough charm and charisma to make it work.
And I wonder if he's like hyper aware of the criticisms he got for Coming to America, and on this one he was like, ooh, I can't mess up Axel.
And I suppose this is as good a time as any to talk about the age thing. I mean, given the enormous amount of time that's passed since the last movie, and the fact that most of the main cast are now old enough to get free bus passes, one of the big questions that I had going into this film was, how are they going to deal with all this stuff? Well, in Axel's case, the answer is they don't. Much like Tom Cruise in Top Gun Maverick, there's a few passing references to the fact that he's getting older now and is carrying a little more baggage than before, but for the most part, the movie's content to just let him do what he does best, which in this case is to be a wisecracking, fast-talking bullshit artist who can bluff his way in or out of almost any situation and mostly relies on violence as a last resort. Judge Reinhold and John Ashton both slip back into their old roles pretty effectively, even if Ashton's looking pretty tired and frail these days.
Yeah, and they did the dyed hair and all that. Hey, I'm here for it. This is gonna probably use the same logic as an 80s, early 90s movie.
I mean, damn, man, I know that dude looked old even in the very first movie, but now just moving around the room seems like a bit of a stretch for him. The film gives the old trio a few scenes together, but the script makes you wait until the very end of the movie to actually do it, which feels like kind of a missed opportunity because watching them spark off each other was one of the best aspects of the original movie. Instead, the main dynamic now is between Axel, his daughter Jane, and her ex-boyfriend Bobby. Jane's likable enough, and there's a few father-daughter scenes showcasing a still very immature Axel struggling to be something that he very clearly isn't. Jane's smart and capable without turning into a Hollywood girl boss who can do everything better than her dad because the script says so. And again, kudos to Eddie Murphy and Jerry Bruckheimer for respecting their legacy characters.
Yeah, that very easily could have turned into what it sounds like that Blade movie has been for a while now. Just the girl overshadowing or popping out of the shadow of her father, and then looking way better than anything her dad does.
Bobby, on the other hand, is a bit of a non-entity, lacking much of a spark or definable personality, and played by a blandly confused Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who doesn't quite seem to know why he's in this film.
Bro, that's been like the last 7 movies that he's been in on Netflix. From Power, he did the one where everyone got power for like an hour, superhero powers, Jamie Kennedy. Yeah, not good.
And quite frankly, I don't blame him. You could probably have cut his character out altogether and focused
Jamie Foxx
more on Axel and Jane, and it would have been all the better for it. In terms of writing quality, I'd describe the script as serviceable rather than particularly memorable, coasting pretty heavily on nostalgia and fan goodwill. I mean, there's neat little cameos from Paul Reiser as Friedman and the always awesome Bronson Pinchot as Surge, where he and Murphy get to riff off each other again, and lots of little references to previous adventures. There's lots of swearing and irreverent humor, and although it doesn't have quite the same bite as the earlier movies, it's still better than most of the generic sludge that we get today. The film even has the balls to take the piss out of the third movie for being absolute dog shit, so it's nice to see there's something we can all agree on. The plot provides all the core elements you'd expect in a movie like this.
I kind of unironically like the third one, but I do realize that it's the worst of all of them.
Without really requiring you to think too much about it. In fact, it's probably better that you don't in retrospect. The driving force behind the story is the search for a missing Billy and the SD card with incriminating evidence that he's hidden away, which could exonerate an innocent man framed for killing a police detective. The script doesn't make too much out of the SD card or its contents, and to be honest, I kind of forgot that Jane was out to free an innocent man after a while because he's barely shown or mentioned after his intro. Also, Kevin Bacon may be playing the most obviously telegraphed bad guy in the whole
Kevin plays a good bad guy. He does play a good bad guy.
Series, flamboyantly rich and sleazy and clearly on someone's payroll, but for some reason Axel's the only one who can actually see it. The Beverly Hills Cop movies were never particularly known for their action scenes, prioritizing gritty, low-level gunfights rather than big spectacular set pieces, and for the most part, Axel F stays true to that formula. There's an early chase scene that felt kind of sluggish and forced and over the top, and had me worried that the rest of the movie was going to be like this, but generally the film delivers some decent action that won't exactly blow you away, but they'll keep you entertained in the moment. Ultimately, I'd classify Axel F as a middling entry in the series, better than 3, but lacking the energy and grittiness of 1. It's not the
Bro, no one is ever going to touch 1, clearly.
Sort of film that'll stick with you after you've watched it, and I can't exactly say it was worth waiting 30 years for, but if you're after a fun little throwback to a popular series that's probably better than it has any right to be considering its nightmarish production, then I think Axel F is probably worth a couple of hours of your time. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Yeah, that sold it enough for me. That if it's better than the third one, and he's good in it, and it's a chance essentially to say goodbye to this character, because I highly doubt you're going to be seeing another one. Certainly not with all of the original characters. So yes, thank you for the service, Drinker. I will now watch this movie, and we'll let you know on a live stream what we think of it. Anyway, Let me know what you think of this. Be sure to like, share, and sub. If you have done that, thank you. If you're going to do that, thank you. And
Well,